Hey gamers, this is Liz Davidson from Beyond Solitaire, and today I'm going to be reviewing Joan of Arc, the Orléans Draw and Write. Alright, so here is Joan of Arc, the Orléans Draw and Write, all laid out, and it's on the solo side of the writing sheet. So basically this game can be played by more than one player, but obviously I did this for solo, and I've played it once at 2 players. But if you want to play with more than that, this one does go up to 5, and there is an entire other side where the multiplayer game happens. So on this side of the sheet is the multiplayer game, and then over here we have solo. So I'll be working in these areas, and this is where Joan of Arc is working, and she's the opponent. So basically this game has some of the same elements of Orléans, but it's also been turned into a drafting game. And we will draw 5 tokens from the bag. So I'm the first player, so I will get to pick first, and then Joan will draft, and I'll draft back and forth until these are gone. So I'll get an additional action on this round. Then we'll draw 5 tokens from the bag again for the next round, and Joan will get to go first, and she'll get an additional action. Each of these tokens represents something that you can do as a basic action, and then you can pick up buildings to give you extra oomph to the tokens. But basically, farmers let you collect goods, and filling up rows or columns of goods has various rewards. Knights allow you to travel, so you can fill in land travel routes along this map, and then, of course, fill in corresponding goods that you pick up along the way. Craftsmen let you either get money or build locations. So if you traveled to a location and Joan hasn't sniped it from you yet, you could build there, and that's a major component of scoring down here. Scholars allow you to progress along the progress track, also very key. The sailors let you either get money or travel along a water route. And then you've got these merchants who can either give you money or let you build one of these locations if you've got the money to burn. So rather than take money tokens, you fill in this grid for money. So just as there's a grid for goods, there's also a grid for money, and you have to fill it from left to right. But for every column of money you spend, you get bonuses. And then for every row you fill, you get bonuses. So you have to make some choices about which bonuses are more important to you and how you want to build out your cache of cash. This shield track is filled up by these bonuses, and it's also sort of overflow. So, if you filled up all of your goods, but then you get another good, you can put it in the shield track. And the main thing to note is at the end of the game, the primary scoring is going to come from locations you've built plus citizens you've earned times progress on the scholar track. So locations are built over here on the map. Citizens are earned in sort of a race to some of these spots on the sheet. There's a couple along the progress track as well. And then you multiply that by the progress that you've made. So that's a lot of points. Your shields will matter. There are bonuses for filling up rows and columns of coins. There are bonuses for goods as well. There are bonuses for not taking these monk actions. So a monk is basically wild in most situations. So if you do not turn any of your tokens into a monk throughout the game, then you get these points for not doing that. But, maybe sometimes you have a farmer, but you really need something else, so you cross this off. Use the farmer token as a monk action and do whatever you need to do. So it'll be up to you to decide. Shields, and then your total. Joan scores in a slightly different way that I think is pretty brutal, actually. So I'm having a hard time even winning the basing mode for this right now. But every time Joan takes a basic, a farmer, a sailor, a knight, or a craftsman, she crosses off one of these circles and automatically starts getting points for some of them, as you can see. The scholar track gives her little bonuses as well, which is pretty brutal. A lot of her cards will tell you to fill in shields, which are worth points. You go from left to right and then left to right. And then she has spaces to cross off for any locations that she builds, citizens that she gains, or progress that she makes. So this symbol means that she's reached a new progress level. Just like you could, she just does it in a different way. And the way that you decide what Joan's doing on a given turn is that you flip the top card of her deck, and then this card will tell you whether you're reading from the bottom or the top. And then you look at the first available token for her to take. So for example, there's a craftsman here. She's going bottom up. She would take this craftsman and build location 1 if this was her setup. So Joan is going to operate pretty quickly on a little basic card structure, but she's super brutal. As you can see here, if she were going top down and As you can see here, if she'd managed to get one of the sailors, she just knocks out an entire beneficial deed up here up top. So these are other places to put tokens that give you bonuses for each time you do it, and then a big bonus if you're the first to complete the deed. So this is a game that's full of a bunch of different little choices, and that's before you even get to the buildings, which again can be built with merchant tokens. You essentially pay the money on the top of the card in order to take special bonus action cards for yourself for the remainder of the game. There are 5 levels of them. In a multiplayer game, other people are buying up these cards, but in solo, you actually have to buy one from each level before you can get one for the next. So I basically never get to the 5th level in solo because I don't like to use my actions that way, but maybe that's a mistake. So who knows? But that is an overview of how this game works. You are essentially trying to choose the right tokens when it's your turn to draft to do the most effective things possible in order to get the most points against Joan, who is an absolute point powerhouse, and she's going to just truck up all of these different tracks way more quickly than you would feel comfortable with. So for now, let's just do some final thoughts on the review. All right, so now for some final thoughts. I have mixed feelings about this game. I really, really wanted to love it because I love a good chunky roll and write. So as y'all know, if you've been watching the channel, I've been having quite the love affair with Hadrian's Wall, and I still really enjoy it, and it's definitely still king for me in terms of just really enjoyable roll and writes that have some heft. And I think that Joan of Arc is trying to enter that space. It's definitely a lighter game than Hadrian's Wall, but it has some of that same kind of, okay, there's a lot going on, we're going to add some cards, we're going to try to capture something that's a little bit heavier in this quick setup form. Joan of Arc is also in a different place, though, because it's trying to evoke Orléans, which is a fantastic game. I actually did not end up keeping it in my collection, but it's only because I don't think that the solo is strong enough to make it a keeper in a world full of great solo games. If somebody brings it out at game night, I'm always 100% down to play Orléans. I think it's fantastic. And so Joan of Arc, I think, succeeds in the sense that it does kind of capture some of the same feeling, and it does scratch some of that Orléans itch, but it is a different game. And the drafting mechanism, like if you don't like drafting, you will not like Joan of Arc. So, whereas in regular Orléans, you're able to build your bag, and it's really about the kind of building that you do. So like, yes, you're fighting for spots on the board, but you have a lot of control over the kinds of actions you can take because of the way that you're building your bag. In Joan of Arc, that's not true. Because in Joan of Arc, you're beholden to what is actually available in the token pool at the time that it's your turn. And, that's good and bad. It's good in the sense that it does add some tension to the game. It's irritating because sometimes you just never get to take the action you really wanted to take. I think that this game is also probably better multiplayer than it is solo. So I've only played it with another person one time, but I really liked the game with 2 people that I played. It was really fun to kind of race for things together and, explore the game together and be like, okay, well, you did that. Well, then I'll do this then. And there was a certain excitement to it that I really enjoyed. I would absolutely play this game again with another person. I don't know about higher player counts. I suspect they might get a little bit frustrating, frankly, just because having so many tokens come out and then so little say in which one you get, even if you go through the bag more times, it does seem to me like it would be really frustrating. But I'm not really sure I want to keep playing against Joan. And I don't know if this is a skill issue on my part or a balancing issue in Joan. Like, I'm not sure. But I've played this game several times. I'm really struggling to do well against Joan. I've won a couple times, but they didn't feel like satisfying victories because those were the one time that Joan drew really horribly on her AI. So basically what's going on with Joan is that sometimes she just gets everything. Like, for some reason, the card that comes up is the card that will, take the citizen away from you right before you need it, or the card that will, block the location that you were just intending to go to, or that will give her a whole bunch of really quick progress on the scholar track and then multiply all those citizens that she got. And, in addition to that, she's moving up trackers just for having tokens, and her shield depot gets really, really full really, really fast. So Joan is a point machine, and I get that because you need that in a solo game where you're a human playing against an automated opponent that has to be a little stronger than you in an unfair way because you're smarter than it. Like, I get that. But because of the randomness of Joan's card draw combined with the drafting, it was like I couldn't strategically draft anything because I really did not understand what Joan was going to do because she's an automa. She couldn't play with any strategy. And also because it was so easy for Joan to just take things like the beneficial deeds, you can be too moves into a beneficial deed, and like in a normal game, nobody else would have even started it, but Joan can just take it away from you immediately. And I get it, but I didn't like it. It made me sort of deprioritize parts of the game that I might have really enjoyed racing for and getting benefits from in another setting. So knowing that I couldn't get any of the deeds made me not want to commit too many tokens to the beneficial deed options. And knowing that Joan was probably going to get the citizen on the goods track and the citizen on the money track before I ever even had a chance really disincentivized me to go for those things. And so I instead focused on locations and just trying to get my multiplier up as much as possible to try to offset things I knew she was going to take from me. Like there was no merry race because I knew I couldn't win. And it also kind of forces you, at least in my case, to play the game the same way a bunch of times in solo because Joan has really specific advantages. And then there are things where she's not as advantaged. And so, you adjust your game to quit racing her for stuff she knows she can get you on and focus on other parts of the game. But there's just, even though there's a lot to do, there's not enough other places to go, especially when she's drafting tokens that you also want, to really make that feel satisfying. So this was a game that I really absolutely wanted to like. If somebody at a game night said, "Hey Liz, do you want to play this?" I'd be like, "Yeah, absolutely, let's do it." I really like the racing aspect with another person. I really like the way that you can pick up monk actions or the way that you can still get buildings to make your tokens more powerful. Like all those things about it are good. And as like a heavier roll and write, I did enjoy it. And I enjoyed taking the actions, and I enjoyed considering my options. I just don't necessarily think that Joan is great. And also, while I can't speak from experience on this, I'm not sure how higher player counts in this game feel. I'd actually be really interested to see other people's reviews come out because, I don't know, this looks like it could get pretty tight pretty fast. And like it would be really frustrating to watch all the tokens that you really want go by and then have other people draft them and you only get like one. So I don't know. Like, this is one of those games where I think it has a lot going for it. I think maybe, like, a low player count might be good, but not... I think one player is maybe not the best. I'm sure, however, there are other people who have different experiences of Joan. I will tell you that when I did beat her, though, it was like she just drew everything wrong. And so she would, like, miss actions, or she'd go for a citizen that I did already get. Stuff like that. And so it's possible to beat Joan, but I always felt like it happened when she was unlucky rather than because I played well. And I would prefer to feel like I had a little bit more agency in that. So that is Joan of Arc, the Orléans Drawn Right. It is good, but I would maybe play this with like 2 or 3 people. So that's my review. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, subscribe, comment, give to my Patreon if you're feeling generous. And most of all, happy gaming.